Hello and welcome to our home here in Brittany in France. If you're new here, my name is Jane. My husband Michael's behind the camera. We're early retirees in our mid-50s, debt and mortgage free, and we live a really thrifty and frugal life here in France. If that's your thing, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and don't forget to like the video if you enjoy it. Let's take a look at what we're going to have a midweek money chat about this week. Now this week is all about sinking funds. What is a sinking fund? Where do we keep it? How do we manage it? How do we track it? How much do we put into each of them? And what are our sinking funds called? So make sure that you watch all the way through this video to get all of those details this week. Let's start off with what actually is a sinking fund. A sinking fund is sometimes called a savings pot. So if you imagine that you were saving up to go on holiday, you might have the cash envelope system, for example, and put money into it. You might actually have some kind of little piggy bank. You might actually put money into it, but you might have separate bank accounts in which you put that money. So a sinking fund is a savings fund or a savings pot, and you might have 1, 2, 25, 400. It's up to you how many savings funds and savings pots and sinking funds that you have. So I'm going to go into detail, as I keep saying to you, watch the video all the way through and we'll share all of our individual ones, but that's what a sinking fund is. Before I go into the nitty-gritty, the deep down details all about our individual sinking funds, you might be asking the questions, why do we do this? Why do people have these sinking funds? And it is really surprising, even if you think you're really good at budgeting and you really are doing your best with budgeting, that things people will say crop up. And what they mean by that, or what I meant by that in the past, because I was that person, is I wasn't prepared. Having those individual sinking funds or having those individual savings pots means we are allocating different bits of our budget each month for things that are going to happen in the future. So in the future, the car will need servicing. In the future, there will be birthdays. In your future, you may need extra money for childcare in the school holidays. In your future, you might need to put extra money aside for your new glasses that you need this year. So why do we do it? We allocate the budget each and every month for those expenses that are going to come up over the year, or even that might come up over the year. Now, let's get into the real details of our sinking funds. Before I get into the details of sinking funds, I'm going to go through budgeting. I think it helps. I think it's good for people to see this, as in, where do the sinking funds fit into your income? How much is this as a percentage? What have you got left? And so on. So I'm going to take the income of 1,846. It's kind of a worst case scenario income. Our income goes up, our income goes down, but it's pretty much a worst month. So let's take a look at that. Immediately we put aside 10% into long-term savings. So I'm never tempted to think, oh, that's 180 euros spare, I'm going to go out and buy a handbag. I have to think about tomorrow. I have to think about the long term. So that 10% has gone into long-term savings. My sinking fund, so I'm going to go into details about, a total 852 euros each month. And our living costs total 814 each month. So we can see there that I'm putting aside 56% of our income each month, and we're living off 44%. You may be wondering how we have that money for sinking funds at the beginning of the month. So let me explain that, because like I said, you may never have seen me do this before. So for example, the money we earn in November, right up to the end of the month, we aren't paid until the end of December. So we are paid 2 pensions and a small income. but we don't get that until the end of the month. So that becomes the budget that starts on the 1st of January, and that's the money we live off. Talk about sinking funds, they often wonder, where do you put it? How do you put it there? What do you do with it? As I said, we don't use an envelope system, we just put it into our bank accounts. And as you can see here, we have 4 bank accounts. Now the more bank accounts we've got, the more bank fees we have to pay. So the less bank accounts we've got, the less bank fees we have to pay. We have our main account, our current account. All our money, our pension and incomes goes into that account. And then each month, at the end of the month when we are paid, we put the money where we want it to go. We decide where our money goes. And we leave behind €814. Into account number 2, we put the sinkings fund. We put in there 767. In account number 3, on a better month, not a worse month, we might put in here some savings that we might spend this year. At the moment, because on a bad month we haven't got that money, it's 0. And I think it's important for you to see that some months we don't have that extra money to save. But account number 4, this is savings we do not touch. In here, we have an emergency fund of 12 months living expenses. Now don't forget, this is a living expense. All of these sinking funds have to be paid each year. All of this has to be paid. So it's this plus this times 12 is a minimum we leave in our emergency fund. And then each month we add a bit more to that savings account. This savings account accrues a best interest rate we can possibly get. Into that we add in our long-term savings of 10% each month, and we put our car savings in there. Now this amount here is not to spend. When we put savings in here, this is savings we can spend. So when we bought things in the past, like a lawnmower or a cooker, it's gone into this shorter term savings fund. So that's where what we do with our money. So we get paid at the end of the month, we put the money where we want it to go. If you've watched any of our budgeting videos before, you know that we don't use spreadsheets, that we use a good old-fashioned budget book. It's what works for us. We keep this budget book right where we can see it. It's where we know where it is. We refer to our budget book. We fill in our budget book every time we go shopping. Absolutely, we love using it. It's just what works for us. So you can see here at the beginning of the year, we've set up our sinking funds. I'm going to really whiz through those as quickly as I possibly can, and I've got all of them laid down there. So you can see I've got clothes, that's 600 for the year, that's clothes, shoes, bags, coats, that's 300 each. Trip to the UK, it actually cost us €1,000 just to go there for a couple of days by the time we worked out the ferry and Airbnb. We then have our taxes, and then, for example, I'm going to go through this one here. Christmas and birthdays. In total, we have 12 gifts to buy at €50 a gift is 600. Nice and easy, then you can see, have to save €50 a month. So we have these figures here, and then we divide them by 12. We've got quite large figure here, and it says house garden DIY. And let's go into some details. And you can see it better on the paper here. You can see we've got taxes, income tax, tax on our home. We've got 3 taxes on our home, and then we have a water bill, and that works out $150 a month. Saving for a new car, well, that is a saving over 5 years, but it's still £85 a month. Gifts, as I just previously said, pets and vets, that's grooming and vet bills, I beg your pardon. And then we've got G. Now this is a big one. We've had to make this a lot bigger. Where it says house, garden, DIY replacements. We've got to put money aside every single month just in case the fridge freezer needs replacing, or the oven needs replacing, or the washing machine. So there's a figure in there. It comes to £3,600 a year divided by 12, £300 a month. Then we have things that we've got stuff to do in our garden. As you saw, we're going to have some hedges cut down, some work done in our garden. DIY. We as yet have no tiles on our bathroom walls. We've got no skirting boards, no baseboards in the house yet. We've got things that we need to do, and we really do need to commit financially to that this year. So those are our sinking funds, and of course our long-term savings right at the top. Run through my living expenses, our budget, so people don't think that I'm hiding anything from anybody. This is our actual budget. We've had to put our food budget up because food has become more expensive. We've had to change that budget. And where it says food, that is absolutely everything we eat. It also includes everything from the supermarket. So not just food, 368 each month covers food, toiletries, cleaning products, dog food, and in there, any supplements that I take as well. Any makeup that I might want to buy, not that I buy very much, very often, maybe a lipstick a year, but that comes out of that supermarket budget. So where it says food, it should really say supermarket. We have a mobile phone each, Mike's 10 a month. Car insurance is a 37 a month. It costs us no more to pay for that monthly than annually. So we pay it monthly. We've got Jane and Mike's health insurance is 100. We've got a bank charge of 20. My mobile phone is 20. We have internet too. We have 2 internet systems. That's 20 a month for 4G. We have URSAF, which is tax or a social charge to pay each month of 57. SOSH is orange, which is our TV, internet and phone package. That is 25 a month. The internet is absolutely rubbish, so that's why we pay separately for 4G. EDF is Electricité de France. That's our electricity bill of 82 a month. 25 a month is for personal care. Haircuts, getting my eyebrows waxed. People say, why do you pay someone to wax your eyebrows? Because if I take my glasses off, I can't see my eyebrows. And then we've got car fuel. There's things that are not on here. There is, on a month like that, where we don't earn very much money, there is absolutely zero discretionary spending. There is no way that we could just nip out and buy something, because as you can see, there is nothing budgeted for that month. We have no package for TV, such as Netflix, for example. And you can see here, there's no budget for entertaining. There's no budget for eating out. There's no budget here on this budget plan here for home insurance, because we got such a good home insurance package that we paid for that in a lump sum of $250 in December last year. So we'll factor that into the budget towards the end of the year. So there you can see, $814 is what it costs us to live. So we would call that a bare bones budget, but those are our costs. It's not cheap to live, is it? sinking funds, you might be thinking to yourself, well, how do you manage that? And I'm going to show you how I keep a running total. I've already told you that we earn the money, and we use the example of November. We receive the money in December, and that's the money we budget to live off in January. So that's how we have the sinking fund already for January. And I have a page in my book which I just literally track the sinking funds. Nice and simple for us. I also track that, going back to this here, I'll also track that every single month too. So let's go through this here. So these are our sinking funds. So you can see here it's 852, but I immediately remove 85 of the savings to the car to long-term savings, which leaves us with 767. So that's the figure I have to put into account number 2 every single month. Now in this month we have to have some tree work done. We've got a very bushy hedge right on the side of the road, and it means when we pull away with our car we cannot see what is coming, and we live on what British people call a blind bend. So we need this hedge really cut down. So 1, we can see what's coming, and 2, it's very, very, very overgrown. So we've had to get a tree surgeon out to come and cut this down, because it has to be cut from the roadside, and he is insured. So if he stands on the road to cut this down, he is insured. So let's get on with this. So we start off with 767 going into the account. We have 390 coming out. We are left with 377. In February, we now have 767 plus 377, giving us a balance 1,144. We've got no expenses in February. If anything comes up, it's somebody's birthday, we get invited to something, the simple answer to that is no. It's not in my budget. Not in my budget, I'm not buying it, it's not happening. March, we carry that figure over, 767 plus the 1,144, giving us 1911. However, in March, we have a gift to buy and a trash bill to pay. So we're then left with 1,683. I hope you can see how we do this and manage this. Obviously, some months a lump of money will come out in one go. And I think a sinking fund is a good thing to explain it as, because you build the fund up, you take it down again. And realistically, by the end of the year, by the time the money's come in, the money's come out, money's come in, money's come out, you're back to 0 again when we get to here in December. I could have made this up as some kind of hypothetical budget, but these here are our real figures. And like I said, if something comes up and we haven't got the money for it, fantastic, a local event happening or a concert or something happening, and it's not on our budget, we're not doing it. It's not on our budget, we're not going. Not on our budget, we're not buying it. So I hope that explains how we manage our sinking funds. Everything goes in my little book here, and I keep a running total. Now, as I know, some people really need detail, and when I'm learning something new or I want to know something new, I really do need to know all of the details. So I'm going to share this in greater detail. So we've looked at tracking an overall sinking fund. Now you might ask, Jane, how do you and Mike track your individual sinking funds against your entire sinking fund? And I'll show you my budget book, and then I'll show you on paper because it's easier for you to see on paper. So, in my budget book, as I've explained to you, I have one bank account into which our sinking funds go in each month. And money comes in, money goes out, money goes in, money goes out. But we keep a running total of what's in that overall sinking fund. Then I know how much I have set, as I said earlier in the video, at the beginning of the year for individual things. So we've set an amount this year, our goal, our total to spend on DIY, home, replacing things, anything like that, is 3,600, and we're putting aside 300 a month. In January, I've spent 390. So clothes, and you can see I have individual tracking and overall against. And over the page, I've got a total. Of course, it's January, these are empty, but these populate themselves throughout the year. I've got to track pets and vets, I'm going to track Christmas and birthdays, I'm going to track car care. I'm now going to bring that over on paper to show you what that looks like. So here's one. So for example, out of the total that we've spent, I beg your pardon, we have set 3,600 for all of our spending this year on home, DIY, all the projects around the house and around the garden. And so far in January, because as I've said earlier in the video, we've got a tree surgeon coming and spent 390. That means there's 3,210 left. And you might be asking, what if I spent that amount by, I don't know, June? There's none left. There's none left. There's none left. It's like walking into a shop with no money in your pockets. None left. There's none left. So I keep running totals. There's the total. If I go out and spend 15 euros, I leave the total I've got to spend. But I'm also tracking my overall sinking fund total, because we keep our sinking fund in one account. In one account. Let's just put that so you can see it straight. That's a bit better. In one account. So I know in January, all that's left by the end of January will be 377. And then of course, the next amount goes in the beginning of February. And I do the same with all of our expenses. So if you imagine that was, you can't see it in shot, but all on one page. And I've got that on a couple of pages, all at the back of my budget book. I'm keeping a total of my sinking funds, and I'm keeping a total of all my expenses for each of those. And I absolutely know I can't go over that. If I don't have the money, I don't have it. And I know it's hard. I'm not asking anybody else to do it. I always state this when I make these videos. I share what I do. I share what works for us. That's what I do. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people like to have individual sinking funds and they do not touch money from one fund to the other. And I understand, and that's cool, but that's the way that we work it, and that's the way that we track each individual sinking fund. And when we do things like we go to the vet and we might pick up some medication for the dog, or we might have a groom from the groomer, then what we will do then is we'll put the receipt into that page, receipt number or the receipt date onto that page, and then that receipt goes into our budget book, and in our budget book there's a little folder for each month for all the receipts. I really hope that helps, because like I said, when I learn something new, I need more details. I hope you can see it clearly by me putting it on a page. I really hope that helps. I really hope that was helpful or interesting or gave you some ideas. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you have sinking funds? And if so, what kind of titles do you call yours? And how do you track your sinking funds? Do you have lots of different bank accounts? I know in the UK people use things like Monzo and Starling. So what do you use and how do you use to track yours? Just leaves me to say, on behalf of Mike and I, thank you to everybody who watches, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.